Hannah Weisfeld is Executive Director and founder of Yachad, a British Jewish organisation whose primary mission is to empower British Jews to support a political resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Joins us now. Good morning, Shi. What do you make of the Home Secretary's words?
Look, I think that the discussion in the UK has become incredibly polarised and, to be honest, extremely unhelpful. Without a shadow of a doubt, there are many people protesting on the streets of London because they look at what's happening and they feel compelled to speak out and they feel compelled to call for a ceasefire. Within that group of people, there are those who are calling for violent uprising against Israel. There are people who are chanting anti-Semitic slogans, and they should be dealt with to the full extent of the law. And and they should not be welcome on those demonstrations. But I think we have to be so careful in this incredibly difficult time where tensions are very high and Jews and Muslims in this country are quite, fearful, really, to lower tensions and to reduce communal fraction. And to be honest, I think that the Home Secretary is making that much worse. I think that she is well within her rights to call out those who are chanting anti-Semitic slogans, who are holding banners that are aggressive about Israel and are hostile and supporting terrorism. But that's not the majority of people who are on the streets of London.
I guess most people who are protesting are just dismayed by the situation and trying to just express their sense of impotence.
Yes, and I think for a lot of people, myself included, and I've worked on this conflict with partners on the ground in Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories for over a decade. And this is the worst thing that anybody could possibly have imagined. And the scenes coming out of the region, the scenes that came out of Israel on the 7th of October, and the scenes in Gaza are horrific. And I think for a lot of people here, they look at them and they think, I don't know what to do, but I want this to end, and therefore I will go on the streets and I will express that opinion. And I think we have to be mindful of the fact that not everybody who expresses an opinion necessarily understands exactly what is happening, but they speak from a place largely of humanity. And I think we should remember that, because right now there are a lot of people who are seeking to use this conflict to pit communities against each other, to stoke up communal tensions. And we really don't need that. We really need political and religious leaders to reduce those tensions and to remind people that actually this is a conflict which is happening, a horrendous conflict which is happening many thousands of miles away. And what we can do from outside is support the voices from within that are calling for a different type of future. And I think that often just gets completely lost in the noise of how people express their opinions there. There are Israelis, there are Palestinians living in the occupied territories who day in, day out fight together to protect shared humanity, to protect human rights. And we should get behind those voices and we should elevate them and we should support them. And right now, what appears to be happening is that we are exporting this conflict and we are doing everything we possibly can to divide communities here rather than unite them.
Is a political solution possible?
There isn't another choice. So, what happened on October 7th and what has happened since October the 7th is a catastrophic failure of the international community and what it basically hasn't done now for 20 years. It's because for 20 years, the international community has turned a blind eye to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and said, this is unresolvable, we can't do anything about it. We will occasionally intervene when things are difficult or express the fact that we don't support certain actions of either side in this conflict, but we're going to leave the two parties to fight their own war. And right now, what you see, and I heard you talking about Blinken being in the region, that you see world leaders now doing shuttle diplomacy around the Middle East, trying to stop this from spilling over into a broader regional conflict. And the world, certainly Israelis and Palestinians, but the world has learned a very, very severe lesson in the last 4 weeks, which is that if this conflict is not solved, it is not only catastrophic for both Israelis and Palestinians, but it has a real danger to spill over and really inflame tensions much more broadly in the Middle East and put the world at risk. And I think that the only thing that can come out of this conflict is a renewed international effort to get the parties around the table and for once and for all draw a line under this conflict and move on. And the only way that can happen is with two states for two people. We've seen, the calls for one state, the calls for a binational state between the river and the sea. I understand why people find those ideas appealing. There is no way in the aftermath of what has happened over the past 4 weeks that Israelis and Palestinians want to live in one unified state. They want a state of their own where they can live in safety and security and dignity. And what the world needs to do right now is make sure that out of the horror of this conflict, that is what happens. There is no other future for the peoples of the region.
Hannah Weisfeld, thank you very much for joining us, Executive Director and founder of the organisation Yachad.